Hey everyone, welcome back to the lab. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to get the IP address of a web request in F# Giraffe. So fullstackprojects.xyz is my latest project, and it's basically a website that generates random project ideas. Now, some of these project ideas are kind of bad, so I kind of wanted a way to sort through the bad ones and get the good ones to rise to the top. And so to do that, we're utilizing an anonymous voting feature to help rank these ideas. And this kind of means needing some sort of way to dedupe. And so we are utilizing IP addresses to naively dedupe votes from the same source. Obviously, very easy to hack around, stuff like that. But for a naive implementation, it's very easy, theoretically, to do this. Now, it's built with F# Giraffe. So this means that I need to get the IP address of the current request that I'm serving in order to identify the source of the vote. And I actually found this to be surprisingly hard. So here I'm going to show how I was able to get the IP address of a request in F# Giraffe so that hopefully, you or future me can do this a little bit easier in the future. Okay, first let's talk about the F# Giraffe HTTP handler. So to get the IP address of a request, we need a handle to the request itself in order to actually ask it, what is the IP address on this? And F# Giraffe uses HTTP handlers as the default interface for dealing with incoming requests and therefore giving you that handle to the request information itself. And so more information here in the docs, but it basically passes along two parameter types, an HTTP func and HTTP context. And we'll be using this context here to access the information about the request and get access to that IP information. And so just to give you kind of some context, like if you're building your own, what does this look like? You'll probably have some sort of route declaration, like you'll say, what's the verb here? What's the route? You'll probably have a string here. This is just a variable. And then you have the handler itself, which fulfills, this type interface. And then the HTTP handler will probably look something like this, where you take in that HTTP func, where you get that context, and then you do whatever it is you need to do. Now, deep dive into F# and Giraffe is way beyond the scope of this post, but I do have a few guides if you want to learn more. I'm here about setting up a web API with Giraffe, and here diving into endpoint routing itself, kind of how this stuff works. Okay, so now that we have some of that context of how are we actually getting the handle to this request information, now we can talk about how we actually get the IP address from the F# Giraffe requests. So let's say that we've got a request, it gets filtered into this route that we've created, and that this route is calling into our handler. So we're basically in here inside the handler. How do we get the IP address from this? And so I've created a function for this, and basically what it does is it checks 3 locations on the HTTP context that the internet recommends for getting an IP address from ASP.NET. If it finds one, it just returns the first thing it finds. Otherwise, it's going to go on to check the other things. And so these 3 things are first this server variable HTTP forwarded for, then this server variable remote address, and then finally the connection's remote IP address. And now I'm going to be honest, and this is a caveat to you as well when you're choosing to use this. I don't have context on why these are where IP addresses are stored or which one is better than others in different situations. All I know is that this is the one that seems to be recommended in all the .NET communities to get this from ASP.NET, and it seems to work in my own project, and so this is what I'm going with. There's probably a way better way to do it, but this one works, and so that's what I'm sharing today. And so here's the actual code for this. So it's right here, and I'll show it to you in GitHub as well, just to prove that this is what I'm doing and also to get some code highlighting. And so here we are in my repo. Let's make this bigger. Let's close that. And so here we have it. Here, request IP address. We have the context. We see it takes an HTTP context and it's returning a string option. Returning an option because, we might not actually get anything. So we want to show that to our surrounding code. The first thing we check for is we go into the request, we get the context, we look for the server variable this forwarded for, and now this is going to be raw. This is unfortunate. I think until .NET 9, we still need to do null checking, even though when something might not be null or F# doesn't know things can be null right now. So here we're using the v or the is null to determine if it is null. If it's so, we're going to turn it into a native option. Otherwise, we're going to do a sum, and then we're going to naively just do an early return if it is sum. We're going to do the same thing here for remote address, and then we're going to do the same thing here for the remote IP address. And so very simple, basically just check these 3 things. If we find one, return as soon as we do. If not, go on to check the others. And so all that code's here. If you want to copy paste it, try it out yourself. Now in my own testing, both in localhost and in my project that's being served right now, it seems like connection.remote IP address is the only one that's ever populated, but I will say I think this is highly dependent on the way your own app is set up, whether you have different middlewares, whether you're hosting in a Docker container, what cloud you're using and how they are forwarding IP addresses, dealing with headers, etc. So, just use this with a bit of like a warning. That it will probably work. One of these will probably work better than others, but depending on the setup, that'll depend on which one it is. Next. So I'm still enjoying building web apps with F# Giraffe over SPAs like SvelteKit, but it can be frustrating when simple things like this aren't easy to get working. Hopefully this makes your own dev journey a little bit easier and a little bit less frustrating. Question for you is, how are you getting IP addresses in your F# projects? I'm pretty sure there's like a better way to do this, but I just haven't found it yet. So curious what you're using. And if you like this post, you might also like generating full stack project ideas with F#, more about how full stack projects is built and why I built it in the first place. Might also be interested in build a simple F# web API with Giraffe if you're new to Giraffe and kind of how I think about building my websites. And finally, might be interested in the HAM stack, a simple scalable tech stack for building modern web apps fast and cheap. And this is basically my general philosophy for how I think web services should be built in general, kind of the tech stack, the system architecture, etc. That I think works both small and large scale. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.